Ruben Amorim drops formation bombshell. What this means for Manchester United's future. Hey everyone, welcome back to United Daily Updates. If you're new here, you've come to the perfect place for honest Manchester United news and analysis. We don't just repeat what everyone else says. We actually break down what's happening at the club and explain what it means for United's future. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel right now because we bring you daily content you can actually trust. No fake rumors, no drama for clicks, just real information and thoughtful analysis. The hook: everything you thought you knew about Amorim's system is about to change. Imagine this scenario. You've spent the past month watching Manchester United play a certain way. 3 centre-backs. Wing-backs bombing forward. A very specific shape that the new manager brought with him from Sporting Lisbon. You've been analysing which players fit this system and which don't. You've been thinking about which signings make sense for this formation. And then suddenly, the manager tells you he's not going to use that system all the time anymore. That's exactly what just happened. Ruben Amorim has dropped a major bombshell. He's told the media that when all his players return from injury, Manchester United will not play with 3 defenders all the time. They're going to use different formations depending on the situation. This is huge news. It changes everything about how we think about United squad, their transfer plans, and which players will get opportunities. It creates winners and losers among the current squad. It opens new tactical possibilities but also raises serious questions. So what exactly did Amorim say? Why is he making this change? And what does it mean for specific players at Manchester United? Let's break down this major tactical shift and explore all the consequences that flow from it. What exactly did Ruben Amorim say? Let's start with the actual words that came out of Ruben Amorim's mouth because getting the details right matters. Amorim was speaking to the media at his press conference. This is where managers face questions from journalists about upcoming matches, team news, and tactical plans. It's a normal part of a manager's job. The journalists were asking Amorim about his tactical approach. They wanted to know about the formation he's been using and whether he plans to stick with it. This makes sense because Amorim has been very committed to his 3-4-3 system since arriving at Manchester United. Amorim's response was clear and direct. He said that when all the players return from injury, United are not going to play all the time with 3 defenders. That's a direct quote. Not going to play all the time with 3 defenders. This is significant language. He didn't say they might occasionally try something different. He didn't say they'll stick with 3 at the back but make small tweaks. He said they won't play with 3 defenders all the time. That means regular, frequent use of different formations. The key phrase is when all the players return. Right now, Manchester United have several injured players. Key defenders like Leny Yoro, Harry Maguire, and Matthijs de Ligt have been out. Other positions have injury problems too. What Amorim is saying is that once everyone is fit and available, he'll have more options. And with those options, he plans to be more flexible tactically. He won't be locked into one formation regardless of opponent or situation. This represents a significant shift in thinking from what Amorim said when he first arrived. Initially, he talked about implementing his system and getting players to understand it. The strong impression was that the 3-4-3 formation was non-negotiable. That's what worked for him at Sporting. That's what he believes in. But now, just a few weeks into the job, he's already talking about tactical flexibility. This suggests either that he's adapting to what is found at Manchester United, or that he always planned to be more flexible once he had time to assess the squad properly. Either way, this is major news that changes how we should think about Manchester United going forward. Why is Amorim making this change? So why would Ruben Amorim decide to move away from the system that made him successful at Sporting Lisbon? Let's think through the possible reasons. First, the reality of the Premier League might be forcing his hand. English football is different from Portuguese football. The pace is faster. The physicality is more intense. Teams press more aggressively. What worked perfectly in Portugal might not work as well in England. Amorim has now been in England for a few weeks. He's managed several matches. He's trained with the players daily. He's watched opponents closely. He's probably realized that rigidly sticking to one formation in the Premier League is difficult. Second, the squad he inherited isn't perfectly suited to a 3-4-3 system. Manchester United's players were bought by previous managers who used different formations. Some players fit what Amorim wants. Others don't. Rather than forcing square pegs into round holes, maybe Amorim is adapting to the players he actually has. Third, injuries have exposed the limitations of relying on one system. When you only play one formation, losing key players is devastating. If you're more flexible and can play multiple ways, injuries become less problematic because you can adjust. Fourth, Amorim might have always planned this flexibility. Maybe the plan was always to start with one clear system to establish identity and patterns, then gradually introduce more variety once the basics were in place. This is actually smart coaching. Get the foundation right first, then add complexity. Fifth, opposition teams are starting to figure out United's approach. When you play the same way every week, opponents can study you and prepare specifically for what you do. By adding tactical variety, United become harder to prepare for and more unpredictable. Sixth, player feedback might be influencing this decision. Managers talk to players constantly. If senior players have suggested that different approaches might work better in certain situations, Amorim might be listening. Good managers adapt based on what they learn. Seventh, results might be a factor. United have had mixed results under Amorim. Some good performances, some disappointing ones. If the manager feels that tactical inflexibility is costing points, changing approach makes sense. Whatever the exact reason, the important thing is that Amorim is showing tactical flexibility rather than stubbornness. Some managers are so wedded to their preferred system that they never adapt. Amorim seems willing to change based on what is learned. That's generally a positive sign. What formations might United use instead? If Manchester United aren't going to play with 3 centre-backs all the time, what will they play instead? Let's think about the possibilities. The most obvious alternative is a 4-3-3 formation. This is perhaps the most common formation in modern football. 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 forwards. It's what many top teams use. Liverpool play this way. Manchester City often use it. It's proven and familiar. In a 4-3-3, United would have 2 centre-backs instead of 3. Luke Shaw and Nasser Mazraoui would become traditional full-backs rather than wing-backs. The midfield 3 could be structured in different ways depending on what's needed. The front 3 provides width and attacking threat. Another possibility is a 4-2-3-1 formation. This was actually what Erik ten Hag used at United before Amorim arrived. 4 defenders, 2 defensive midfielders, 3 attacking midfielders behind a striker. It's a solid, balanced formation that many teams use successfully. United could also use a 4-4-2 in certain matches. This is a more traditional English formation that offers solidity and simplicity. 2 banks of 4 players provide defensive stability. 2 strikers give options in attack. Against tough opponents, this might be sensible. There's even the possibility of a 3-5-2 variation on what United currently use. Still 3 centre-backs, but the wing-backs push even higher and become almost wingers. The midfield gets an extra body. The 2 strikers work in partnership. This is different enough from 3-4-3 to count as tactical variety. The key point is that having multiple formations in your toolbox makes you more adaptable. You can set up one way at home against weaker opponents and differently away at Manchester City. You can adjust during matches if things aren't working. You give opponents more to think about. Most top managers use at least 2 or 3 different formations depending on circumstances. Pep Guardiola constantly adjusts his tactical approach. Jurgen Klopp used variations on his preferred system. Successful teams aren't one-dimensional. Amorim seems to be recognizing this reality. The 3-4-3 might still be his preferred formation in many matches. But having alternatives makes United more complete as a team. The immediate impact on centre-backs. Now let's talk about the most obvious consequence of this formation change. What happens to Manchester United centre-backs? Right now, United are using 3 centre-backs every match. This means 3 players start in those positions. Against Newcastle, Aiden Heaven and Lisandro Martinez were 2 of those 3, and both played excellently. But if United move to a formation with only 2 centre-backs, one of those 3 players loses their place. Simple math tells you that 3 into 2 doesn't go. Someone misses out. This becomes even more complicated when you consider who's currently injured. Lainery Yoro has been out for weeks but is getting close to returning. Harry Maguire has also been injured but should be back soon. Matthijs de Ligt is another defender coming back from injury. Once everyone is fit, United will have Lisandro Martinez, Matthijs de Ligt, Lainery Yoro, Harry Maguire, Aiden Heaven, and Tyler Fredriksson all competing for centre-back positions. That's 6 players, and possibly more if you count others who can play there. When you're playing 3 at the back, you can rotate these players fairly easily. 3 spots means more game time for everyone. Competition is healthy but everyone gets opportunities. But if you're playing 2 centre-backs most of the time, suddenly half of these players are on the bench or not in the squad at all. The competition becomes much fiercer. Some very good players will barely play. Let's think about who the preferred partnership might be in a 2 centre-back system. Most people would probably pick Lisandro Martinez and Matthijs de Ligt. Martinez has been excellent this season. He's a fighter, good on the ball, reads the game well. De Ligt was signed in the summer for big money. He's experienced, good in the air, solid defensively. If those two are the first-choice partnership, where does everyone else fit? Lainery Euro is only 19 years old and cost £52 million. United clearly see him as a future star. But is he ready to start regularly ahead of Martinez or De Ligt? Probably not yet, though he'll push them hard. Harry Maguire is the club captain, though his position has been uncertain for a while. His contract is expiring soon. He might be on his way out. Even so, when fit, he's a capable defender who can do a job. But finding playing time for him becomes very difficult. Aiden Heaven is the interesting case. He's a young player who's broken into the first team this season. He's looked really good in the chances he's had. Against Newcastle, he was terrific. Confident, strong, composed. He looks like he has a big future. In a 3 centre-back system, Heaven can play regularly while learning his trade. He's getting valuable experience without too much pressure. But in a 2 centre-back system, he's competing with much more experienced players. His opportunities could dry up quickly. Tyler Fredrickson is even further down the pecking order. He got a few minutes off the bench against Newcastle, his first Premier League appearance this season. For him, the change to 2 centre-backs probably means even less playing time than before. This is the harsh reality of squad management. When you change systems, some players benefit and others suffer. It's not about who deserves to play. It's about who fits the new approach best. What about the wing-backs? Let's talk about another major consequence of moving away from 3 centre-backs. What happens to the wing-backs? In Amorim's 3-4-3 system, the wing-backs are absolutely crucial. They're responsible for providing width going forward while also tracking back to defend. They need incredible stamina because they cover the entire length of the pitch. They're almost attackers and defenders at the same time. Manchester United have been using players like Nasser Mazraoui, Luke Shaw, and Diogo Dalot in these wing-back roles. These players have had to adapt to the specific demands of the position. But if United move to a back 4, these players become traditional fullbacks instead. The role is quite different. Fullbacks in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 have more defensive responsibility. They can't push forward as recklessly because there's less cover behind them. They need to be more disciplined positionally. For someone like Luke Shaw, this might actually be good news. Shaw is naturally a left back. He's played that position his entire career. The wing-back role was something new he had to learn. Going back to traditional left back might suit him better. Mazraoui is versatile enough to play either role effectively. He's shown this season that he can adapt to different tactical demands. Whether he's a wing-back or full-back, he'll probably do well. The question is what happens to players who were specifically bought or developed as wing-backs. If United have younger players coming through who are pure wing-backs, their pathway to the first team might be blocked if that position no longer exists regularly. There's also the issue of how this affects United's attacking play. Wing-backs provide natural width and help stretch opposition defenses. Traditional full-backs are usually more cautious. This could make United less expansive going forward. However, playing with traditional full-backs allows for an extra midfielder. This could give United more control in the centre of the pitch. It's a trade-off between width from wing-backs and central control from an extra midfielder. Amorim will need to work with his full-backs on exactly what he wants from them in the new system. Are they allowed to overlap wingers? How high should they push? When should they stay back? These details matter enormously to how the team functions. The midfield puzzle. Changing from 3 centre-backs to 2 also has major implications for Manchester United's midfield. Let's think through how this works. In a 3-4-3 system with wing-backs, you typically have 2 central midfielders. That's it. Just 2 players in the middle of the park doing all the midfield work. This is why Amorim needs those midfielders to be so good. They have to cover a lot of ground and do many different jobs. But in a 4-3-3 system, you have 3 central midfielders. An extra body in midfield changes everything. You get more control in the center of the pitch. You can dominate possession better. You have more passing options. The defensive cover improves. This should actually help Manchester United quite a lot. One of the issues this season has been getting overrun in midfield against good teams. When you only have 2 central midfielders against a team playing 3, you're outnumbered. Adding a third midfielder helps balance this out. The question becomes how you structure that 3-man midfield. Do you play with 1 defensive midfielder and 2 more advanced players? Do you use 2 defensive midfielders and 1 attacking midfielder? Do you go with 3 box-to-box players who all share defensive and attacking duties? Different matches might require different setups. Against Manchester City or Liverpool, you might want more defensive solidity. Against weaker teams at home, you might go more attacking. The flexibility helps. For individual players, this creates new opportunities. Kobbie Mainoo might play more if there's room for 3 midfielders. Manuel Ugarte could find a role he's better suited to. Christian Eriksen might get more game time in certain matches. Bruno Fernandes is interesting. In the 3-4-3, he plays as one of the 2 attacking midfielders behind the striker. In a 4-3-3, he might play as the most advanced of the 3 midfielders. Different position, different responsibilities. How he adapts will be crucial. There's also the question of what this means for United's transfer plans. We talked earlier about targets like Carlos Baleba and Adam Wharton. If United are moving to a 3-man midfield, they might need different types of players than they would for a 2-man midfield. A 3-man midfield allows for more specialization. You can have a pure defensive midfielder who just sits and protects. In a 2-man midfield, both players need to be more complete. This might actually make someone like Leon Goretzka more attractive because his box-to-box style fits a 3-man midfield well. All of this is speculation until we see how Amorim actually sets up the midfield in the new system. But the possibilities are fascinating to think about. How the attack might change. Let's also consider what this formation change means for Manchester United's attacking players. In Amorim's 3-4-3, United essentially play with 5 forwards. The 3 actual forwards, plus the 2 wing-backs who push so high they're almost wingers. This creates lots of attacking options and makes United dangerous going forward when it works well. But it also means the 3 actual forwards need to work hard defensively. They're the first line of defense when United lose the ball. They need to press opponents and track runners. It's physically demanding. In a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, the front 3 or 4 players might have slightly less defensive responsibility. The extra midfielder provides more cover. This could allow United's attackers to focus more purely on attacking. The types of forwards needed might also change. In Amorim's system currently, having versatile forwards who can play different positions is valuable. In a more traditional formation, you might want more specialized players. A pure striker, genuine wingers, a classic number 10. Players like Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho, Amad Diallo, and others will all be affected differently by formation changes. Some might thrive in new roles. Others might struggle. The striker position is particularly interesting. In a 3-4-3, you often play with 1 central striker. In a 4-4-2, you'd have 2 strikers playing together. This could mean more playing time for some forwards if United use 2 up front occasionally. Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund might benefit from playing as a partnership rather than competing for one spot. Their different styles could complement each other. Zirkzee drops deep and links play. Højlund runs in behind and stretches defenses. Together they could be effective. Bruno Fernandes might also benefit from formation changes. If United play 4-2-3-1, Bruno could operate as the number 10 behind the striker. This is arguably his best position. He has freedom to create, less defensive responsibility, and can influence the game more. The tactical flexibility also helps with squad rotation. If you can play multiple formations, you can rest key players in easier matches by changing the system slightly. This helps manage workloads over a long season. The youth players losing out. One sad consequence of this formation change is that some promising young players might lose opportunities. Let's talk about Aiden Heaven and Tyler Fredrickson specifically. Aiden Heaven has been one of the positive stories of this season so far. He's only 18 years old but has looked completely at home in the first team when given chances. His performance against Newcastle was particularly impressive. Composed, strong, didn't look out of place at all. In a 3 centre-back system, Heaven has been able to get game time and develop. He's learning while playing real matches, which is invaluable for young players. He's showing United fans that he could be a star in the future. But if United move to 2 centre-backs most of the time, Heaven faces much tougher competition. He's suddenly competing with Martinez, De Ligt, Euro, and Maguire for just 2 spots. Even if Maguire leaves, that's still 3 experienced players ahead of him. The risk is that Heaven barely plays for months. He sits on the bench or doesn't even make the squad. His development stalls because he's not getting minutes. This would be a shame after the promising start is made. Tyler Fredrickson is in an even worse position. He only got a few minutes against Newcastle. He's much further down the pecking order than Heaven. With 2 centre-backs instead of 3, his path to the first team becomes even narrower. This is a common dilemma in youth development. You want to give young players chances, but you also need to win matches with your best team. Sometimes those 2 goals conflict. The ideal solution would be loan moves for players like Heaven if they're not getting enough game time at United. Go play regularly at a Championship or lower Premier League club for 6 months or a year. come back stronger and more experienced. But United need to be careful here. Heaven looks genuinely talented. If they loan him out and he does really well elsewhere, other clubs will come calling with big money offers. United could lose him. The formation change makes these youth development decisions more complicated. It's another factor Amorim and the club have to consider when planning the squad. What this means for January transfers. Let's think about how this formation flexibility affects Manchester United's transfer plans for January. If United were definitely sticking with 3-4-3 for the rest of the season, their transfer priorities would be clear. Wing-backs would be important. Centre-backs would be crucial because you need 3 every match. The midfield too would need reinforcing. But if United are moving to more varied formations including ones with a back 4, the priorities shift. Traditional full-backs become more valuable than pure wing-backs. Centre-back depth becomes less critical because you only need 2 per match. But midfield becomes more important because you might use 3 there regularly. This could explain why United are looking at midfielders like Leon Goretzka, Ruben Neves, and Carlos Baleba. If the plan is to play with 3 midfielders more often, having quality depth in that area makes sense. It might also explain why United aren't desperately searching for another centre-back despite injuries. If you're moving to 2 centre-backs, having 6 or 7 options is actually too many. Better to work with what you have until summer. The formation flexibility also gives United more options in how they use new signings. A player who doesn't fit one system might work perfectly in another. This tactical variety makes the squad more useful overall. From a recruitment perspective, it's actually smart to be flexible tactically. It means you can target a wider range of players rather than only those who fit one specific system. You have more options in the transfer market. However, it also makes recruitment more complicated. You need to be sure any signing can play in multiple formations and roles. Specialists who only fit one system become less valuable. Versatility becomes crucial. This is probably why United are linked with experienced players for January rather than young prospects. Someone like Goretzka can play in different systems and roles. He doesn't need months to adapt. He can fit whatever formation Amorim uses. How this compares to other top teams. It's worth looking at how other top Premier League teams approach tactical flexibility because it provides context for what Amorim is doing. Pep Guardiola at Manchester City is famous for constantly changing his tactical approach. He might play 4-3-3 one week, 3-5-2 the next, then some hybrid system you can't even name. His teams are incredibly flexible. This tactical variety is part of why City are so dominant. Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp were more consistent with formation but made subtle adjustments. The basic 4-3-3 stayed the same but the roles within it changed depending on opponent. Arsenal under Mikel Arteta do something similar. The formation looks the same but the details vary. Chelsea under their various recent managers have used different formations regularly. Sometimes they play 3 at the back, sometimes 4. They adjust based on what they need for each match. The lesson from all these examples is that top teams aren't rigidly stuck in one formation. They adapt. They have multiple tactical plans. They are unpredictable. Amorim seems to be learning this lesson quickly. Rather than stubbornly insisting on his preferred system regardless of circumstances, he's showing flexibility. This is actually quite mature management. Some coaches take years to learn this. Amorim is figuring it out in his first few weeks. The key is maintaining some consistency so players aren't constantly confused by new systems. You probably have one main formation you use most often, then variations you bring out in specific situations. This balance between consistency and flexibility is what the best teams achieve. United haven't been tactically flexible in recent years. Under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they basically played one way. Under Erik ten Hag, there was some variety but not much. Having a manager willing to use different approaches could be really valuable. The risk of changing too much too soon. While tactical flexibility is generally good, there's also a risk in changing too much too quickly. Let's talk about this concern. Ruben Amorim has only been at Manchester United for a few weeks. He's barely had time to implement his preferred system. The players are still learning his basic ideas. Now he's talking about adding tactical variety with different formations. There's a danger that players get confused. If you're learning one system, then suddenly being asked to play a completely different way, it's hard to know what you're supposed to do. Confusion leads to mistakes. Mistakes cost points. It takes time for players to truly understand a tactical system. You need weeks and months of training, repetition, and match experience. Quick fixes don't work in football. Building something sustainable requires patience. Some fans might worry that Amorim changing approach so quickly suggests panic or uncertainty. Maybe he's realized his preferred system doesn't work in England and he's scrambling for alternatives. That would be concerning. However, there's also an argument that having tactical variety from the start helps players become more adaptable. Rather than rigidly drilling one system for months then trying to add variety later, you work on multiple approaches simultaneously. Players learn to think more rather than just following patterns. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Amorim likely wants one main formation that United use most often. But he also wants the flexibility to change things up when needed. This seems sensible as long as it's not changing randomly every week. Communication with players will be crucial. Amorim needs to clearly explain when and why he's using different formations. Players need to understand their roles in each system. Training sessions need to cover all the variations so nothing surprises players during matches. If Amorim manages this well, United could become a more complete team. If he handles it poorly, it could create confusion and inconsistency. The next few months will tell us which way it goes. What United fans should think about this news. If you're a Manchester United fan, how should you react to this formation news? Let's think through what it means for your expectations. First, understand that tactical flexibility is generally a good thing. Top teams adapt their approach. Having a manager willing to change rather than stubbornly sticking to one failing system is positive. This shows Amorim is pragmatic and intelligent. Second, recognize that this creates both opportunities and challenges. Some players will benefit from formation changes. Others will lose out. That's inevitable and not necessarily anyone's fault. It's just the reality of squad management. Third, be patient as Amorim figures out what works best. He's still new to the club and the league. He's learning about his players and opponents. Give him time to experiment and find the right solutions. Demanding instant perfection isn't realistic. Fourth, don't panic if results are inconsistent during this transition period. Changing tactics and implementing new systems takes time. There will be bumps along the way. Judge Amorim on progress over months, not match-by-match results. Fifth, enjoy the tactical variety. It's actually interesting to watch a team that can play different ways. You learn more about players by seeing them in different roles. It makes following the team more engaging. Sixth, remember that formations are just part of the story. How players perform individually, the team's mentality, injuries, and many other factors also matter. Don't obsess over formation as if it explains everything. Seventh, trust that Amorim knows what he's doing. He's proven himself as a top coach. He won titles at Sporting with attractive football. He clearly has talent. Even if you don't understand every decision, assume there's good reasoning behind it. The realistic expectation should be gradual improvement as Amorim implements his ideas. Some matches will look great. Others will be frustrating. But over time, United should develop clear patterns and identity. That's what matters most. Conclusion. Change is coming to Manchester United. After everything we've discussed, what's the main takeaway from Ruben Amorim's formation comments? The simple truth is that Manchester United are entering a new phase of tactical development. The idea that they would rigidly stick to 3-4-3 no matter what has been abandoned. Instead, Amorim is promising tactical flexibility with multiple formations depending on circumstances. This is significant news that affects almost everyone at the club. Centre-backs will face fiercer competition for fewer spots. Wing-backs might become traditional full-backs. Midfielders could see their roles change. Attackers will adapt to new systems. Young players might find opportunities harder to come by. For some players like Aiden Heaven and Tyler Fredrickson, this news might be disappointing. They've had chances in the 3 centre-back system. Now their pathway to the first team could narrow. That's the harsh reality of football where tactical changes create winners and losers. For the team overall, tactical flexibility should be positive. Top teams adapt their approach. Having multiple formations makes United harder to prepare for and more complete as a squad. If Amorim handles this well, it could be a real strength. The next few months will be fascinating to watch. How often does Amorim actually use different formations? Which one becomes the preferred option? How do players adapt to new roles? Do results improve with more tactical variety? These questions will be answered on the pitch over time. For now, all we know is that change is coming to Manchester United. The 3 centre-back system won't be permanent. Something new is being built. Whether that something new leads to success remains to be seen. But at least United have a manager willing to adapt and think flexibly. That's better than stubborn attachment to systems that aren't working. Thank you for reading and stay with United Daily Updates. Thanks so much for reading this detailed breakdown of Ruben Amorim's formation plans and what they mean for Manchester United. Understanding these tactical developments is crucial for following your club properly. This is what we do at United Daily Updates. We give you in-depth analysis that goes beyond just reporting what happened. We explain why it matters, what the consequences are, and what to expect next. Real analysis, not just repeating press releases. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We create content every single day covering everything Manchester United. Match analysis, transfer news, tactical breakdowns, player ratings, everything you need. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Join our community in the comments where we have great discussions with United fans from around the world. Share your thoughts on Amorim's tactical plans. Tell us which formation you think works best. Debate which players should start. We love hearing from you. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook too, where we post quick updates and engage with the community all day long. We're building something special at United Daily Updates and we want you to be part of it. The rest of this season will be crucial for Manchester United. Every match matters. Every tactical decision Amorim makes will be analysed. Every player performance will be judged. We'll be here covering it all with honest, intelligent analysis you can trust. Come on United. Let's hope these tactical changes lead to better results and progress under Amorim. Thanks for being part of United Daily Updates. See you in the next one and remember to subscribe.